That's an interesting question for me because I did not come into the society or aware of it actually because my mothers or my aunts were, you know, famous ladies in this town. It was actually my first recollections of the antiquarian was the Hedge House and coming to the fair and being probably with my mother, you know, and just looking in awe at this house. And I did get to tour it as a little girl and come inside. And as I'd mentioned, we talked previously, when people would ask me as probably a 12-year-old, what's the most beautiful house in Plymouth? Now, I'm sure there were some other lovely, lovely estates, which I'd never been to. But for me, it was the Hedge House. You know, I would say, oh, it's the Hedge House. And I was privileged to spend my summers on Clark's Island. And on Clark's Island, there was the Watson House, which is it was the big white house that you could see from Plymouth. And that was very similar. It had been preserved by Howard Watson. It was very, very beautiful. So I would always say, well, my two favorite houses are the Hedge House and the Watson House on Clark's Island. And as a little girl, I went to Sacred Heart School, so I didn't go to public school, so I didn't, you know, I wasn't privileged to be part of the corn planting. Actually, it was done by 7th graders then, and I entered Nathaniel Morton in the 8th grade. But many of my classmates in the 7th grade had participated in it. So I always felt like I missed out on that. And I probably had gone to the Harlow House, but again, just toured it. I wasn't involved as a child. I didn't get to go I don't even know if there was a children's program then. But so I missed the corn planting. I even have some pictures at home of my classmates in the corn planting. Frank Anderson, our class president, was someone famous, and Steve Billy, also a classmate, was, I think, who was the most famous person that stood there, the captain. And way, so those are kind of, it's kind of not solidified. And my Aunt Helen, when I was in my probably 20s, when I wasn't even in Plymouth, I was away from Plymouth, made me a life member. And until recently, I'm like, how did Aunt Helen, how was she involved? She was a member. She was never a board member. How was she involved? Well, then through our previous discussions, when we talked about Rose Briggs and the Pilgrim's Progress, I remember my Aunt Helen helped Edwina. For years and years, Edwina Dittmar and Helen Perrier Music did the costuming, helped people get ready for the Pilgrim's Progress, did the laundry. Now I remember my aunt ironing in this little old hot kitchen, and boy, could she iron, and she would iron these things. And she would work on repairing costumes, because Edwina apparently made a lot of them. So that was the connection. And I then learned, just recently, that the Pilgrim's Progress was started by Rose Briggs, whose mother was a founding member of the Antiquarian. So actually the Antiquarian Society began the Pilgrim's Progress, and I just learned that fact now and made the connection with why my Aunt Helen was in the Antiquarian Society.